Hello, I'm Dan, and this is Discourse Lesson 4. This lesson is a tricky one, because it's sometimes difficult to understand the difference in meaning between gerunds and infinitives. After some verbs. Yes, that's right. Sometimes there are different meanings depending on which one you use. For example, imagine a friend tells you that he stopped to drink a cup of coffee this morning. Now, imagine that another friend tells you he stopped drinking coffee this morning. What do you think is the difference between these two sentences? In this lesson, let's think about some differences between the uses of gerunds and infinitives. To begin, let's simply take a look at what gerunds and infinitives are. Gerunds end in ing. They are the present participle form of a verb when it's used as a noun. For example, she likes running in the park. Infinitives are the base forms of verbs, and they are often preceded with to. For example, she likes to go running in the park. Next, let's look at a couple of sentences that you've seen before. Let's take a look at the sentences I like running and I like to run. In these two sentences, both a gerund and an infinitive is being used. And the meaning in both of these sentences is exactly the same. Like is the main verb in this sentence. And when followed by either a gerund or an infinitive, it carries the same meaning. This is not always the case though. There are a few verbs in English that when used with either a gerund or an infinitive, the meaning of the sentence changes. Let's take a look at these verbs and then consider how they are used differently with gerunds and infinitives. The verbs listed in your textbook are the verbs regret, forget, remember, stop, and try. Let's look at forget first. For example, he forgot setting the mousetrap, and he forgot to set the mousetrap. In the first sentence, using a gerund, its meaning is suggesting that the action happened in the past. In other words, he set the trap but doesn't remember now. The idea of him setting the trap is in the past. In the second sentence, using an infinitive, its meaning is suggesting a future action. He forgot first and so didn't do something. Let's look at this in other words by saying he didn't set the trap. I know this is a tough structure to understand, so let's look at a few more examples using the main verb remember. For example, he remembered calling me, and he remembered to call me. In the first sentence, calling me is past, and remembered comes after. Therefore, he called me and then remembered afterwards. In the second sentence, to call me is in the future, and remembered happened before that action. Therefore, he remembered and then called me. Is it getting clear? If not, please watch the rest of this video and then play it again. Also, take a look at the examples in your book for some more ideas on how these verbs work with gerunds and infinitives. But before we finish, let's take a look at gerunds and infinitives in a different way. Let's look at the sentences, I stopped smoking cigarettes this morning, and I stopped to smoke a cigarette this morning. Can you understand which one means a permanent action and which one means a temporary action? If you said that the gerund describes the permanent action and that the infinitive describes the temporary action, then you're correct. The first sentence means that the person has stopped doing something. They have quit smoking. And in the second sentence, the speaker is saying that he stopped something. Maybe he took a break from work and he smoked a cigarette. After seeing these examples, I think you can understand the sentences from the beginning of this video. Let's review them. Your friend tells you that he stopped to drink a cup of coffee this morning. Now imagine that your other friend tells you he stopped drinking coffee this morning. What do you think is the difference between these two sentences? I think you've got it. If you think that in the first sentence the action is temporary, and in the second sentence the action is permanent, then you are correct. Also, if you're imagining that in the first sentence to drink happened after the person stopped something, and in the second sentence drinking happened before the person stopped, then you have a good understanding about how these infinitives and gerunds work. Good job!